Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel. And today I am doing a pick-a-pal reading. And it's created to explore the energies around the upcoming new moon that's happening next week, Tuesday, if you've caught this when it comes out. And we're trying to see the opportunities that this fresh lunar cycle may be opening up for us. And new moons have always symbolized new beginnings. They're a time when the sky is at its darkest, reminding us that not every new chapter begins with fireworks. Sometimes the most important shifts begin quietly, like a seed being planted beneath the soil long before anyone can see it breaking through the surface. And this particular new moon invites us to pause and ask ourselves, what am I ready to grow? What old story am I ready to leave behind? And what version of myself is finally asking to emerge over the coming weeks? And whether that shows up in your relationships, your creativity, your healing, your career, or simply the way you speak to yourself. This is a beautiful time to set intentions that feel aligned with your heart rather than with the fears of the mind. And so for today's reading, I've created 4 piles. And I've used the Lightseer's Tarot, my traditional Rider-Waite deck, and the Ocean of Wisdom Oracle deck. And the Lightseer's Tarot is the main card representing the heart of your message. Then the 3 traditional cards that I've pulled will expand and deepen that story. And then the Ocean of Wisdom Oracle card offers a final piece of guidance from the natural world. And each pile is paired with a specific natural object, which can hopefully help you decide which pile you want. And these carry their own symbolic energy. And remember, this is a general reading. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and trust your own intuition about anything I say. If you're drawn to more than one pile, that's absolutely perfect. Sometimes one pile reflects where we've been, while another one points towards where we're going. So take a slow, deep breath. Allow yourself to settle into the present moment. As you look at these 4 piles, notice which one naturally catches your attention. Don't overthink it. Your intuition often speaks softly through a feeling, a color, or simply a sense of knowing. And when you're ready, choose your pile. We have a malachite rock crystal on pile 1, a pine cone on pile 2, a gorgeous piece of coral. This comes out clearly on pile 3, and then I love that we've got a bit of sunshine here. Maybe I can get it through this piece of Smoky quartz. It's really a special piece to me. And that's your pile 4. So when you're ready, I will begin. Okay, pile number 1. If you chose the malachite pile, I feel this reading is about remembering who you are beneath all the noise. What came up is the Queen of Wands. To deepen this message is the 3 of Wands in reverse, the Queen of Swords, and Temperance. And a message from the ocean is underwater gardens. Nurture the garden of your heart, cultivating seeds of compassion, gratitude, and forgiveness. So your main energy is the Queen of Wands. And I absolutely love her as the anchor for this reading. She is magnetic, she's creative, she's confident, not because life has always gone her way, but because she trusts herself so deeply. She doesn't wait for permission to shine. She knows that her light belongs to her. But surrounding her is an interesting story. So the Three of Wands reverse tells me that there's been a feeling of delay, frustration, or perhaps you've been looking out at the horizon, waiting for something to happen, waiting for someone to choose you, waiting for circumstances to change, waiting for certainty before taking the next step. And this card gently asks, what if you've been facing the wrong direction? Sometimes this card appears when we've become so focused on what isn't arriving that we forget what already lives within us. And then we have the Queen of Swords. This queen has learned through experience. She's no longer interested in illusions or stories that keep her small. She's inviting you to lovingly question the narrative you've been carrying. Are you telling yourself you're not ready? That you need just one more sign? That your timing has passed? Queen of Swords asks you to separate truth from fear. Then we arrive at the Temperance card. This is one of my favorite healing cards because it reminds us that transformation doesn't usually happen with force. It happens through integration, through flow. Temperance is the art of blending all the different parts of yourself, the passionate parts represented by the Queen of Wands, the wise, discerning parts represented by the Queen of Swords, and even the parts of you that has felt disappointment and impatience through the Three of Wands in reversed. Nothing is being rejected. Everything belongs, and everything has something to teach you. What I find fascinating is that both queens here with the Temperance kind of feel like almost like as though your fiery heart and your clear mind are finally learning to work together instead of against one another. You don't have to choose between intuition and logic. You don't have to choose between softness and strength. You can embody both. And then the Ocean of Wisdom Oracle card ties us together beautifully. Nurture the garden of your heart, cultivating seeds of compassion, gratitude, and forgiveness. What grows beneath the surface eventually becomes visible above it. Just as an underwater garden, it kind of flourishes beneath the waves. Your inner world is creating your outer reality. Notice that the oracle doesn't tell you to work harder. It doesn't tell you to chase. It doesn't tell you to become someone else. It simply asks you to tend to your inner garden. Compassion for yourself, gratitude for what already is growing, and forgiveness for the seasons that you believed you had fallen behind. And the Malachite rock has long been associated with transformation and heart-centered change. It doesn't simply remove what no longer serves you. It asks you to become aware of what you've already processed and what you're ready to release so that something more authentic can emerge. I actually think that the message of this entire pile is that you are not waiting for your life to begin. You are becoming the person who naturally creates the life you've been waiting for. The Queen of Wands isn't the destination. She's who you become when you stop doubting your own fire. The fire that's already, it has been there all along. So if the reading found you today, perhaps your invitation is simply this. Instead of asking, what will my future bring and when will it arrive? Ask, what part of me is ready to bloom today? Because I have a feeling that the answers you're looking for aren't somewhere over the horizon. They're already taking root within you. Thank you, pile number 1. If this was your reading, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next read. Pile 2, if you chose the Pinecone pile, this is your reading. It feels to me incredibly alive. We have the Magician as your main energy. Diving deeper into the Magician, we have the Queen of Wands, the Ace of Cups, and the Strength card. And your message from the Ocean Oracle is dolphins. Find joy in playful connection and let your intuition guide you to deeper understanding. The very first thing I noticed, obviously, is the main card, your Magician. The Magician is a reminder that you are far more powerful than you currently realize. You don't need to wait for perfect conditions. He is someone that looks at what is already in front of him and asks, what can I create with this? Sometimes we think we're waiting for more confidence, more money, more time, more certainty before we can begin living the life we imagine. And the Magician says gently, you already have more than enough. The magic isn't somewhere else, it's already in your hands. And then look what surrounds him. The Queen of Wands arrives here. Again, well, in a different position. And she feels very different in this position. And she feels very different here in this whole reading. She isn't asking you to remember your confidence. She assumes you already have it. She represents someone who naturally inspires others simply by being fully themselves. There's something about your energy that becomes magnetic when you stop trying so hard to be impressive and simply allow yourself to be authentic. People are drawn towards genuine enthusiasm rather than perfectionism. Then comes the Ace of Cups. This is one of the most hopeful cards in the tarot. It represents emotional renewal, a full heart, fresh inspiration, new love, whether that's romantic love, a renewal of love of a life, a deeper relationship with yourself, or simply opening your heart to experiences that you've been afraid to receive. So notice something interesting. The Magician represents creating. The Ace of Cups represents receiving. And real manifestation isn't about making things happen. It's about allowing yourself to receive what life is already trying to offer you. And sometimes those two things need to exist together in order for our manifestations to be actualized. Then we arrive at the Strength card. And I love this card because it doesn't say strength is force. It's more of like a quiet courage. You see this angel, this figure, very courageously taming this lion. It's a kind of power that doesn't need to dominate because it actually trusts itself. It trusts this wild inner nature. This card reminds me that gentleness can be incredibly powerful. Perhaps you've been trying to control every outcome. Strength whispers, you don't have to wrestle life into submission. Sometimes the greatest power comes through patience, compassion, consistency, and love. And if we look at the Oracle deck now, find joy in playful connection and let your intuition guide you to deeper understanding. I absolutely love this because the dolphins are incredibly intelligent, but they're also playful. And they remind us that wisdom doesn't always arrive through seriousness. Did I say that right? Sometimes insight comes when we're laughing. Sometimes healing happens during a conversation with a friend. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs arrive when we're dancing in our kitchen, maybe walking in nature, or doing something that makes you forget to watch the clock. And I feel like more often than not, it happens in these moments. And, many of us are taught that growth has to be difficult, that spirituality has to feel heavy or hard. But dolphins challenge that idea. They ask, what if joy is sacred too? What if play isn't distraction from your path? What if it's part of the path? And I think that's exactly what this entire pile is saying, pile 2. The magician creates, the Queen of Wands radiates, the Ace of Cups receives, strength trusts. And none of these cards are about striving or hustling. They're about allowing your authentic energy to flow naturally. And then finally, let's talk about the Pinecone. A pinecone begins as something small and tightly closed. And over time, with warmth, it slowly opens. It doesn't force itself open. It doesn't kind of wait for the right condition. It responds to the right conditions. And perhaps that's your message today. You don't need to force your expansion. You simply need to place yourself in environments that nourish your spirit, environments that encourage your creativity, environments that invite your heart to open. Because when your heart opens, your intuition becomes clearer, your creativity becomes stronger, your relationships deepen, and life begins to respond to the energy you're embodying. So if there's one message I feel that Pal 2 wants to leave you with, it's this. Don't underestimate the power of joy. Joy isn't something you earn after you've finished healing. Joy is one of the ways to heal. And so create, receive, trust, play. Because your magic doesn't grow smaller when you share it with the world. It grows brighter. Thank you for being here with me today. If this was your pile, I hope that you got something out of it. And wishing you many, many blessings. See you on the next read. Pile number 3. If you chose the pile with a coral, piece of coral colored coral, I have, hold on 2 seconds. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the lighting to change here. Okay, sorry, I can't get it to change. Anyway, if you chose the coral pile, I have a feeling this reading is speaking to the quieter parts of your soul. So we came, the main card, main energy is the Queen of Cups. And then to deepen that, the Ace of Pentacles, the Tower in the reverse, and the High Priestess. And our ocean card was Sea Urchins. Discover beauty in life's prickly moments and trust that every experience holds a lesson. And the parts of your soul that I think that this reading are speaking to are not the parts that of you that desperately search for answers, but the part of you that already knows. This pile feels deeply intuitive. I feel like a gentle invitation to trust your inner wisdom, even if your outer world still feels like it's catching up. This Queen of Cups, she's one of the most emotionally wise figures in the tarot. She teaches us that our feelings aren't something to suppress or fix. They're something to listen to welcome. So often we're taught to ask, how do I stop feeling this? But the Queen of Cups asks a different question. She asks, like, what is the feeling trying to teach me? She reminds us that emotions are like waves. If we fight them, they become exhausting. If we allow ourselves to float with them, to flow with them, they eventually carry us somewhere new. This queen has learned that sensitivity isn't weakness. It's a form of profound intelligence. It's the ability to perceive what can't always be seen. And then we have the Ace of Pentacles that came out. And I love seeing this card here because it tells me that something new is quietly taking root in your life. The Ace of Pentacles isn't usually loud, it's a seed. A new opportunity, a healthier way of living, a fresh chapter, perhaps simply a new relationship with yourself. Sometimes we understand that something we need to understand is that the power of small beginnings is that, like, they don't look dramatic, but they're powerful. Sorry, that came out completely wrong. But basically, we underestimate the power of small beginnings because they don't look dramatic. But nature doesn't rush. A giant oak tree begins as an acorn. A flourishing garden begins with a single seed. This card reminds you that every meaningful transformation starts somewhere small. Then looking at the Tower reversed, this is such an interesting energy. When we think of the Tower, we often imagine sudden upheaval or dramatic endings and change. But in the reverse position, it often points towards inner transformation. And perhaps the biggest changes aren't happening around you anymore. Perhaps they're happening inside, within you. Maybe you've already lived through the storm. Maybe the old beliefs, old identities, old fears have already begun to crumble. And now comes the quieter work, the rebuilding, and perhaps this card is asking a gentle question. What are you still holding on to simply because it's familiar? It can also mean a bit of like resistance to letting go of things, to resistance to the change. Sometimes we keep rebuilding the same walls even though our souls have already outgrown the house. And the Tower reminds us that letting go isn't failure. Sometimes it's freedom. And then coming to the High Priestess. I absolutely love seeing her here because she feels like this quiet voice beneath the entire reading. The High Priestess reminds us that not every answer comes through thinking. Some answers arrive in silence, through dreams, through synchronicities, through feelings that you can't quite explain, but somehow are true. Notice something beautiful. The Queen of Cups feels, the High Priestess knows. One listens with her heart, and the other one listens with her soul. So together, they tell me that your intuition is becoming stronger than your fear. And you don't need to force clarity. You simply need to create stillness to hear it. And then if we bring the oracle into the reading and tie this oracle message in, discover beauty in life's prickly moments and trust that every experience holds a lesson. I think this is such a profound reminder. Some of the experiences that shape us most deeply aren't the ones that we would have chosen. They're the uncomfortable conversations, the disappointments, the endings, the moments that made us question everything. At the time, they feel like the biggest obstacles, these mountains. But with distance, we often discover they become our greatest teachers. Not because suffering is required for growth, but because even difficult experiences can deepen our compassion, our wisdom, our understanding of ourselves. And finally, we get to talk about this little piece of coral. I loved diving deeper into these natural objects. And coral almost looks like a stone, but especially when it's all dried out, but it's alive. It isn't created in a single moment. It's built slowly, layer upon layer, through countless acts of creation, countless tiny acts of creation. And over time, these small beginnings become extraordinary underwater worlds that support life around them. I think that's such a beautiful metaphor for the journey. Perhaps you've been expecting transformation to arrive all at once. One breakthrough, one perfect moment, one decision that changes everything. But this pile's message, pile 3, says something different. Real transformation often happens quietly. One boundary, one act of self-compassion, one moment of trusting your intuition instead of your fear. One tiny choice that over time changes the entire landscape of your life. Coral is also remarkably resilient. Even after storms, reefs have the ability to regenerate and become places where new life flourishes. Maybe that's where you are now. Not broken, not starting over, but growing something stronger from everything you've already lived through, building a new foundation. And when I look at this entire spread, I see such a beautiful progression. You know, the Queen of Cups feels deeply. The Ace of Pentacles plants the new seed. The Tower reversed releases what no longer supports you, especially in the growing of this new seed. And the High Priestess trusts that what your soul knows, it knows. And the Oracle gently whispers, even your prickly moments carry gifts. And so I feel like the message is to stop searching for certainty outside of yourself. Spend a little more time in stillness. Trust the quiet nudges. Trust the slow growth. Trust the seeds that you've planted today, even if you can't yet see the harvest. Because just like coral, some of the most extraordinary creations in nature aren't built in a rush. They're built patiently, layer by layer, until one day you look back and realize that everything you thought was like slowing you down was quietly becoming the foundation for something new. And that's your read, pile 3. If this pile found you, or if you chose this pile, I hope that there was a message in there for you. Have a beautiful day. Happy new moon. Okay, pile 3. If you chose the Smoky Quartz, not pile 3, pile 4, Smoky Quartz, then this is your reading. We've got the Empress as your main energy. And then what came out, the 8 of Swords in reverse, the 8 of Pentacles, double 8, and the Moon. And the Ocean Oracle is more of a blessing than a message or than a guide, guiding message. It's the Guardian Star, providing you with protection and strength. Feel safe and peaceful. I'm going to go through this slightly fast because my battery is dying, but I hope it doesn't before I end this reading. So, pile number 4. If you chose this pile, this reading immediately feels like an exhale, especially with this little blessing from the Ocean Oracle. It feels as though life is inviting you to soften your shoulders, loosen your grip, and remember that you don't have to carry everything. You don't have to carry everything alone. And the theme running through this entire spread in one word is safety. Not just physical safety, but also emotional safety. The kind of safety that allows you to become fully yourself. The main energy here, the Empress, she is the embodiment of abundance, creativity, compassion, and unconditional love. She understands that one of nature's greatest truths: nothing blooms because it's rushed. Everything blooms because it's nurtured. And sometimes we believe we have to constantly push ourselves to become more. And the Empress gently asks, what if your next season of growth comes through receiving rather than striving, rather than hustling? She reminds us that we flourish in environments where we feel safe enough to grow. Then we get the 8 of Swords. And the 8 of Swords often represents feeling trapped, not always being not always being trapped by circumstances, but by our own beliefs, fears, and stories. And in the reverse position, it feels as though those mental chains are beginning to loosen. The blindfold can now slip off her head. And perhaps you're starting to realize that some of the limitations you've carried no longer belong to you. And maybe you've been living inside an old story about who you are, a story that was written years ago, a story that you inherited, a story that maybe once kept you safe. But today, it no longer fits. This card isn't saying like every fear disappears overnight. It's saying you're beginning to see the doors that were there all along. And then coming to the 8 of Pentacles. This is a card that knows what to work on. She cultivates a life and a relationship with herself that feels rich, peaceful, and fulfilling. This is not only about working on things that make you money, it's more of an internal work that's going on, building your new internal landscape that's free of these old belief systems. And the moon, when we arrive at the moon is such a beautiful reminder that not every part of your path needs to be illuminated. Sometimes we become anxious because we don't know exactly what's coming next, but nature doesn't work that way. When you walk beneath the moonlight, you can usually only see a few steps ahead, yet somehow that's enough. The moon invites you to trust your intuition over your need for certainty. It reminds you that mystery isn't something to fear. Sometimes mystery is where life quietly unfolds into its gifts. Now, the Oracle card, the Guardian Star, guardian of the ocean, providing you with protection and strength. feel safe and peaceful. I think this is the heart of the entire reading. So many of us spend our lives believing we have to stay alert, stay prepared, stay in control. But this card asks, what if, just for a moment, you allow yourself to believe that you are supported? Not only believe it, but feel it. And not because nothing difficult will ever happen, but because you've become strong enough to meet whatever life brings. Protection doesn't always mean being shielded from every challenge. Sometimes protection looks like becoming resilient enough to move through those challenges without losing yourself. And we finally talk about the Smoky quartz. Maybe someone needs to go get themselves a rose quartz for some love. But the Smoky quartz is often known as one of the great grounding stones. It is said to gently absorb heaviness, to help us release fear, anxiety, emotional burdens. And it's kind of like asking you to give those burdens back to the earth. Doesn't ask you to pretend everything is positive. It simply reminds you that you don't have to carry every weight forever. You don't have to carry it yourself. Some burdens were only meant to teach you, not define you. And when I look at this entire spread, I see a beautiful unfolding. The Empress is nurture yourself. The Eight of Swords is free yourself. The Eight of Pentacles is, create yourself, work on yourself. And the Moon says trust your path, trust your journey. And the Guardian Star whispers, you are protected even when you cannot see your whole path. So if this was your reading today, if you chose path number 4, I would say the invitation is simply this. Stop asking yourself whether you're safe enough to become who you truly are. Instead, begin creating the inner safety that allows your authentic self to emerge. Trust that your roots are growing even when you can't see them. Trust that not every answer needs to arrive today. And trust that the same universe that grows forests, guides tides, and lights the night sky with stars is also gently guiding you, one quiet step at a time. Thank you for being here, Powerful. I hope this sheds some light on the energies leading up to this new moon coming up. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you on your next read.